However, they actually were, but they just didn't know. Because most of these hosting companies will have security mechanisms built in to stop things like distributed denial of service attacks, which is basically flooding a site with heaps of hits and packets and trying to take it off the air by the sheer volume of hits that it gets. And so quite often these security systems that the hosting companies have in place will just trigger when something strange happens from a particular IP address. So this is what we suspected. In fact, I say we, but I mean Samuth. He actually pointed out, he said, oh, I think it could be that the hosting company has blocked the Googlebot. So how do you check that? Well, it's really, really hard, as it turns out, because unless you know every IP address of the Googlebot, and as far as I know, there's only one guy online at the moment that's purporting to do that, apart from Matt Cutts, and that's the Phantomaster on Twitter, and you can go and buy his database of search engine bot IPs if you want. But yeah, there's a lot of IP addresses. So you have to go and get into your Apache log files or whatever your web server you're using, and go and have a look for entries like Googlebot. Anyway, so I reacquainted myself, for the more nerdy of you inclined out there, with grep last night, and basically grepped the crap out of my logs. And we worked out that there was a discrepancy between the 15th and the 17th between visits from the Googlebot, and all we simply did was reduce that down to a number of IP addresses that were no longer appearing in our logs, because our hosting company, as it turned out, hadn't blocked Google. They just blocked one or two IP addresses that the Googlebot travels on, if you like. So the Googlebot was still coming in a little bit, but not terribly much, not the main bot. And as it turned out, to the hosting company's credit, they contacted us before we gave them these IP addresses back and said, hey, guess what? We found that the Googlebot, as it turns out, was sending packets with some weird attachments to the packets. And I won't tell you what those attachments are because I want to go and find out for myself. And the hosting company said they shouldn't have been doing this, but there was an auto thing that basically just shut them out of our network. So that's a major thing. And a lot of people have trouble getting indexed, but there's so many variables to that. You know, is the bot coming to your site? You need to know that first. And there's some free stats packages out there that will give you some visibility on that. Some of the most popular ones out there that are free if you're on a Unix hosting system would be Webalizer and AW Stats, and they'll give you some visibility on that. But if you're on a Joomla install, I highly recommend getting Joomla Stats. It's now available for 1.5, and it will tell you what the bots are looking at. Then if the bots aren't coming to the site, then you've got a problem. If you've got plenty of links out there and the bots still aren't coming to your site, if you've submitted a sitemap, make sure you check your Google Webmaster Tools for errors to find out if there's something wrong with the sitemap or if the Googlebot can't find it. Anyway, so that's all I wanted to tell you about today, because it's really important. I'd be very, very interested to know whether anybody else is seeing a drop-off in bot activity, because it could be that your hosting company is basically blocking the bot if Google is actually doing something different and sending out new packets with something else attached to them. But please watch out for it. And if you do see that similar sort of activity, I'd love to know, because it's probably worthy of investigation. And that's it for this week's show. Oh, by the way, go and check out Cam the Cameraman. That's youtube.com/Cam the Cameraman. He's got a couple of new shows up. Had a bit of a soft launch. And this week he's talking about the use of audio in video. And I've got a bunch of clowns out there waving at the window thinking they're pretty funny. So piss off, get back to work. And that's it for today's show, and we'll see you next week. Thanks very much. Bye.